Hey everyone, my name is Valentyn Vynogradskyi. Um, so before starting my topic is like point of view of team lead. I want to say that I'm not doing presentations a lot, and probably the last one was before I became a team lead. And you may think that, being a team lead, it's not nervous to do a presentation because you're talking all the time, but it's not. It's like, it's super terrifying even still. So apologize for any mistakes or whatever. And another thing, I always wanted to do a presentation with my own drawings. So I did. I'm shitty drawer, but, hopefully you will enjoy it. Let's start. Before going to actual topics, I'd like to go through some intros, and the first intro would be a context, because we're all different, and path to being a team lead is a bit subjective. So my experience is shaped with the decisions I made, with the project I did, and that is why my experience and the circumstances under which I became a team lead would be maybe different for you. So maybe your experience would be different of mine, and decisions and etc. and experience at all. I have 8 years of experience as a full stack developer. I worked with the JavaScript, with the .NET from probably third version. I became a team lead 3.5 years ago. I started leading teams from 4 to 10 people. Why does it matter is because I have rather wide stack of technologies rather than deep, and that probably mean that the regular or like average senior developer from Ukraine or like from post-Soviet Union or other countries like Western would be a better, deeper technology stack educated rather than I am. That is why I'm trying to find people who I can rely to, etc. So I'm not trying to pretend to be a leader developer in the team, because that would mean that it's actually a bad sign for a team, because I used to work only in outsourcing company. That means that maybe in project company it would be a different experience, and I always work in a multi-team project. It means that I have a lot of horizontal conversation with the other team leads, not only like technology stack, features, and development, but a lot of communication management. So horizontal communications were a lot. And yeah, and by saying highly competitive environment, I mean multi-service stacks where a lot of frictions, where you probably moving from distributed monoliths to a microservice system, which or from the monolith to the microservice system, which basically means that you have a lot of context at the same time, which and probably if you became or you already a team lead in a one team project where you have a strict scope, you will have different challenges that I had, and that is why you may not face the issues I faced. The second thing I wanted to talk to is the expectations. The expectations is very important thing about any discussions or any social interaction, and properly set up, they could be a powerful tool, but improperly set up, they could lead to a disaster. So this is a small story I draw. So this is Lucas. He has a perfect mood. He wants to do a surprise for his girlfriend Jade, and he bought a flower and probably a chocolate. And he comes and thinks, okay, I come, I knock the door, she's open, I give her flowers and the chocolate, and she will be happy. I love her so much. And this is Jade. She's wrapped in a blanket, she's sitting on the couch, and she's watching her favorite series. She made the chocolate for Lucas, and she thinks, okay, Lucas come, he has a key, he will open the door, he come and join me, I prepare him a chocolate, and we will be watching Netflix all day. So the next thing what happens, I mean, this is a bit hyperbolized, but the next thing what happened is that expectation met, and they are not fit, and probably, I mean, they maybe not broke up, but Lucas started knocking at the door, and he thinks, okay, I have a key, but I always open with my keys, and today I'm knocking, so she probably have to realize that I have a reason for this. And to be honest, with the chocolate and the flowers, it's not really easy to get these keys. And she thinks, okay, he has a key, why he's not coming? I have a reason for that. I'm sitting here, so the expectations are not met. Expectation from our discussion. It's not how to be a good team lead. The whole presentation is not how to be a good team lead. My imposter syndrome will not allow me to do such talk maybe in the long term. It's not how to become a team lead, because as I said, the path is subjective. Probably it may be different for everyone, and I don't know the tutorial how to become a team lead. This is more about how it is to be a team lead in a, like, with the context from the previous slide. Yeah, as always. Despite the fact that I say this is not a tutorial how to become a team lead, it's actually, let's a bit touch a topic how you would, will, or did become a team lead. There are two ways. You can ask for this, or you will be asked to do this work. And this is actually interesting part, because let's look at the way of your career. I don't know now or in the past, but it's probably for a developer it looks like trainee, then junior, then middle developer, then senior developer. And when you become a middle developer, that actually means that you already half a year a middle developer. So probably you get the promotion when you're doing your responsibilities for a half a year. But for a team lead, it's not like you are already team lead. You're asked to be a team lead, and it's completely shift of your position. It actually contains much more different work from what you already did before than what you will be going to do. And I heard this a lot on the different speeches, but I was surprised myself how much it differs from the regular senior developer work. And I see a lot of, let's say, misunderstanding between the people I work with who understand tech leading differently. And I always say like team lead or tech lead, and I like to talk just a bit about the difference. And despite the fact that there is a clear difference in Google saying, okay, tech lead is this one and team lead is this one, and I will not give my own, let's say, vision on this. The problem is the whole society is thinks like everything they want. I actually know one person who thinks that tech lead is a person who can manage a couple of team leads, and I don't know why. And the problem here is not in actual difference, because you probably won't feel it, because you have a persons who are hiring you or who are giving you a job. And if persons have their own understanding of what is team lead or tech lead, no matter how they call it, you will be doing these responsibilities, or you will be going to a different company. Like if your CTO saying, okay, please prepare the sprint for the next sprint, and you say, I'm not a Scrum Master, I'm a tech lead, so give me technical task, he will probably not have you on this position, because he expects team lead or tech lead doing a sprint. And so people who are expecting the certain responsibilities from you are actually defining this term, and they are using it interchangeably. That is why I'm not following which term I will be using exactly through this presentation, but they actually to me means the same. Now let's go to responsibilities. Through this 3.5 years of being a team lead, I actually did a lot of different things, and don't try to read everything. It's like it's super disorganized, and I did it on purpose. I will try to a bit reorganize this during the talk. So the blue stuff is the technical stuff. I will talk about them a bit later. They are like, this is the proof that they are on the same places. Green stuff is a management stuff. And you know, the management stuff is the same amount as the technical stuff, and you're not doing this as a senior developer. So be prepared that this is coming to you. Architectural stuff, testing stuff, and DevOps stuff. They're also waiting for you there. And you probably don't have to do them in the same time, but most probably you will be doing them in the different time frames during your tech lead career or team lead career. So this is how they look, a bit organized. So this is basically everything you know from a senior, middle senior developer, like interviewing, mentoring, technical feedbacks, coding, implementing features, production issues, performance bugs. Maybe sometimes you are involved in some estimations and technical plannings, urgency, etc. This thread is everything, almost everything new. This is the planning. We will talk about this a bit later. You will be hiring. So sometimes, I will not say like you will be hiring, but sometimes you'll be hiring. Sometimes you will interview a person, and then DM will come and say like, do you take him? Do you want him in your team? And do you kind of commit that this person is the right fit? And when something breaks, it's actually, you take this person. So it's your responsibility. No one will give you a person and say, this is the good one, take him. So you will be driving a team, and team is a key. So you will be looking at the people, you will be interacting them daily, you will be monitoring their mood. If they will have conflicts, you will solve these conflicts, etc., etc. We'll be talking about this later as well. And the one important thing for like my particular context is that this horizontal interactions. It's not only synchronizing the scope with the different team leads, because sometimes you have a developer without the work, you can borrow him to another team lead who has much more feature to implement. You can borrow him, but sometimes there are a cross-team features that you have to address, and no one actually will drive them other than you team leads together. Like, for example, bringing up automation tests to a whole project. If you're just a senior developer, you're probably sitting and waiting for a task, and if someone says you to implement automation testing, you will. But the key is to be that someone who will say, and you have to drive this. It's like pushing something that is not going on itself. You have to push it every day to make it go. So automation tests, you come up with idea, you go to other team leads, you communicate, you agreed on the same approach, maybe you do some spike, but all this is driven by team leads. It's not like someone else somewhere higher may take this decision. Sometimes they are, but most probably they will come to you and this will return to you anyway. Architecturing chunk is like becoming a team lead. You're a small architecture, especially in a microservice project. You will actually be working daily with the architecture. If you have one, you will be suggesting him ideas, because in the microservice architecture, it's really hard for architecture to manage, drive, and maintain all the things. That is why team leads are closely work with architecture, and some chunk of work is given to them. So team leads come up with architecture and give a architectural review where they confirm your idea or do some modifications, but we will be optimizing, reviewing. Sometimes there will be performance issues, so we'll be re-architecturing what you did, and that will happen daily. Testing, again, in ideal world, you have a test team who is like qualifying, doing sign off, but sometimes they don't have access to production, and probably PO should do this, but you have access and you have time, so you have to go quickly test it. Yeah, you will be going testing, set up pipelines, set up DevOps thing. You still will be doing this. You're lucky if you have a good DevOps team, but sometimes you just go and write this, I don't know, GitHub pipelines or GitLab pipelines or Azure Dev or whatever. Probably forgot something. Yes. And yeah, this is actually a small story. I was starting to I was half a year through the team leading, and we have a really bad PO. He was like doing nothing almost. He was from the customer side, especially when you are in outsourcing. You can go to customer and say your PO is shitty. You can work with him. You have to manage the reputation of your outsourced company, so you are doing everything politely. And we had big review in Kyiv where all tech leads or POs from our side or Scrum Masters, and we did like team review one by one the whole like year. And I had a plan. I wanted to ask our delivery manager from the customer side to describe me all the responsibilities of a team lead, Scrum Master, and PO. And when he described the PO responsibilities, I will say, okay, he was not doing that. He did nothing, so I risked nothing because he was, he definitely didn't do what he had to. But DM was better than I am in politics, so he said, tech lead, Scrum Master, and PO should work as a unit in order to deliver it. That means that I was screwed. I had to find another way. That PO was fired, like in 3 months, but I lost that battle. But I still remember this quote. It's a good one. Regarding the management part, there is a point. I'm not super good at management and everything, but there is a point for a company when they from the small garage cozy company will become a big enterprise. They had a round of investitions or investment, and they starting to hire, and they understand that people from the garage who did the job, they actually not capable of managing the job, and somewhere here only 50 people, it becomes a bit of nightmare for technical people to manage, and a lot of companies die on this day, on this threshold, I would say. So for a team lead, it is exactly the same. Like if you are joining the project where you have like maybe 30, 40 people and bigger, you probably should expect a lot of management work. Your coding will be, I don't know, code reviews and whatever. We'll talk about this a bit later. But to me, the more people, like after some threshold as well, it goes down. When the company became big enterprise, they manage all their processes, and typically it's becoming a small people who are responsible for a particular responsibilities that are already written. You probably can expect this to go down, but there is a certain amount of time during this process of growth of the company where a team lead will be doing like almost everything. You don't say like, I don't have this responsibility in a tech lead book. You just do what you're supposed to. Now, I would like to do some small dive into the planning. So PO comes to you and say, okay, I have a business feature, and don't get me wrong, sometimes this business feature is epic with the two, 3 words. It's actually like bring action plan. That's it. And there is a planning session, year planning session for like 2023, and you say, and PO say, okay, Valentyn, please estimate this action plan. And you say, do you know the design? He said, no, I don't have it. We don't have design. We will prepare in September. And I say, okay, what APIs will I call? Do I have a bring a new microservice, or there is like SOAP or anything? He says, well, I don't know, but we need it for tomorrow. And you have to accommodate. It's a part of your job to bring the answer. So you say like 5 sprints. You say 5 sprints, and and probably if you have a lot of experience on this project, it might be already thought through estimate from your experience. Like I did the previous thing and I had the same situation, and probably I know that this will be in the same place. So maybe 5 sprints, and that's it. That's the all information you have, and you have to provide the 5 sprints. So you say 5 sprints when between the time when you give this estimate and you actually have to do the job, you do it yourself, or you ask one of your developers to investigate, and you understand that you were lucky and it is a 5 sprints, but this is 2 sprints for UI developer, 2 sprints for BA developer, and there will be testing somewhere there. So you can fit it in a 3 sprints with this structure. And let's assume this is the first feature, not to influence from this side, but in the same time, after this feature, you starting estimating other features, and you no longer have the clean left side because you already have this structure in front. So you probably have to again put backend developer somewhere here to start simultaneous development. So it's like a small work breakdown structure, and you have to keep in ahead the capacity of your developer, the probably support that you are doing for already released product. Maybe you have some, as I said, cross-team initiative that requires one of your tester and developer to do something on the side, etc., etc. So you're doing this one by one, and this becomes something we call a WBS, which is like work breakdown structure. But the very important part of you being a team lead is being flexible. I've seen people who in this meeting say, okay, 5 sprints, and after they realize that they are doing this in a 7 sprints, they start in pushing, overtiming, they like sit for 24 hours and trying to fit to this 5 sprint estimate, which is, in my opinion, is not a key point of a team lead. Key point of a team lead is the, like, immediately when you recognize the estimate is different, is going and modifying the structure, not silently, like talking to PO talking to his product management, etc. But you have to shift and balance this work breakdown structure through the year. And normally this is pretty acceptable from the management side, because they expect they're not stupid when they ask like in the middle of the year estimate something you will be doing like in a half a year. They understand that plan may change, and they actually change from their side. So you shouldn't be scary of this REMA-defined structure thing, which is the one of the biggest points of the team leading. Team. It's a key part of a team lead, because when you become a team lead, you're no longer like Messi. You now become like Jurgen Klopp or Guardiola or someone, but you're no longer a rock star. You are kind of a team manager who is organizing, who is thinking long term, who is thinking about the overall team mood, so they have a motivation to work through the year. You're thinking about the overall pressure from the management that goes to your team, and you have to protect them from this pressure. And in the same time, you have to satisfy the management with the delivery you are doing, because otherwise, team that is not delivering may have a really good mood, but it will be fired and they will have a bad mood. This is not a like tool for you to manage the team. It's just in the head. So you always keeping the level of expertise of every developer in the team. And the key points for me also, not only like C#, JavaScript or soft skills, so this guy can talk to someone and explain his idea. But also there is like ownership and visibility. And ownership, let me give you an example. So if person have a good ownership, no matter how good his technical skill is, he will take the feature you gave him for implementation, and if he encountered that this feature is looking shitty or behaving strange, or it's not fit into the product, he will come and tell you, and you probably re-architect this thing, or you will go to product owner and say, okay, this doesn't seems good, and product owner, if product owner accept that, okay, this area is not visited by the users, and this is only for administrators, so we don't care how it looks and how it behaves, and animations, we don't care about them. It's totally fine. It's decision of the product owner, but the developer who is working on this should raise the question, should be an owner of the feature, because I've seen people who did everything right. You know, you have the animations there, it's working, but for example, the paddings or like just text is shifted every time you click on something, and it's readable, it's fine, but it looks cheap. And probably this person with a big, like with a good ownership will come and say, like, okay, can I spend like another 4 hours, but I sort it out and it will be looking really great. And visibility. Sometimes you find a really good, talented developer, you are giving him a job, but you understand that he will disappear for 3 weeks, and you will not know the branch he's working in, like whether he's working on it, the tickets will be in progress for 3 weeks, and probably, you know, you have to know this person and rely on him, to trust him to deliver this in 3 weeks. So visibility sometimes may be important, especially when you are mentoring someone. So this also something to keep in head. If someone has lower ownership and lower visibility, you probably will not trust him to give him a feature and disappear for 3 weeks. This is something you have to consider every time you interacting, planning, because you say, okay, this is pretty hard thing, and probably if I will split it in chunks, we can do it in 2 sprints. But if I give it to this guy, he will bring it me in 3 weeks, but I will not hear from him, and he will not answering, or may not answer, and sometimes, you know, he has a good mood, but you know, you have to consider this. Another very important thing is interaction with your team, and that's a very subjective, intuitive thing. Is that, like, I have a quote here. It's pretty common and everyone knows it. So you never give a negative feedback in front of the people. You always go to someone one-on-one and giving him a negative feedback. On the other hand, the positive feedback is always something to share with everyone. That is how a person feels better. But what I mean is not only this. So this is kind of good explanation of the small things you have to think or feel, but probably you should be attentive to the persons you are leading. And that means that if person behaves differently on the meeting, if maybe she or he sounds sad, it's not a big harm to go in direct and ask whether everything's fine. Or if person, like, if the team is working on some feature for 2 months and PO returns to you every day with the urgent bug fixes, everything should be pushed in the production tomorrow, etc., for 2 months, at some point you probably have to understand that your team is under the pressure, and maybe stop for a second and think whether maybe you should give a break for team, because, you know, you have to be attentive to your team, to people you are working with. You have to actually protect them from the management, because management always loves to come, for example, from, like, bypassing you. He can come to your developer and say, hey Vladislav, please do this for me. It's like, I think it's like 2-3 hours. That's not a problem. And your team, they sometimes very sensitive to this, and they, okay, that like CTO came to me and said that I have to do this, that means that I have to do this. But the proper, like in my opinion, the proper way to set up the process around, if this is like certain circumstances, is that there should be a polite way, say, okay, please discuss this with Valentyn because I have like strict scope and delivery capacity and blah, 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 blah. So you have to think about your team when you working. And another thing is that, like, here on the management side is a complete chaos. POs want certain features, and at the same time they want bug fixes, and at the same time they want to research something that we'll be doing in next year. In the same time, your DM and, for example, your architecture wants to bring overall quality on the certain level, so they want the, I don't know, quality gates or automation testing. So a lot of people want a lot from your team, and instead of being leading developer who is doing everything and says everyone else what you have to do, sometimes your job is stop doing coding and start structurizing these things, planning, and putting your team in the structured, ordered way, and leave this pressure on yourself. Sometimes the only job you have is to stop these people being affected by everyone else outside, and that is very important, because your mood and your how you put yourself in front of your team may influence on them and may influence on their code quality, on their delivery, on their overall mood, and whether they want to stay with you another year. Yeah. About coding. So as I said, when you become a team lead, I have another like talented team lead in my team, and he says that his working IDE is Teams, because it's inevitable that you will have a lot of conversations, meetings, plannings, and they probably have like taking part in the meetings, these plannings, and there will be a lot of meetings, a lot of talking about like writing emails, writing documentations, and this will be a good project if you have like 30–40% of time coding, but that never happens to me in 3 and 5 years. I used to work in a small project back in Ukraine 8 years ago, where we have like one project for one particular customer, and we had a tech lead. He was super talented, and he was coding all the time. And we had like a couple of meetings, and that's it. But myself in a microservice with a lot of teams and all this, you probably won't have it. Okay, disclaimer, you won't have it in an 8 hours work day. If you'd like to code outside this 8 hours, like be my guest. But in 8 hours of a day, no. And one more thing, this is actually a bit manageable. So if you really love to code and you want to save it on your side as a part of your activity, you have to do certain steps to save it. For example, the context switch for a team lead is a normal environment to operate. So like every freaking 15 minutes, someone reach to you and say, hey, Valentyn, I have a question. And you have to somehow manage your calendar in a way that you will have this 2 hours of thinking. Because, like, to be honest, sometimes I found myself in a situation where I'm leading, for example, 5, 6 different microservices, and for example, web UI, which is like for every team, and all teams working together in this web UI. And for example, I have a desktop client where I'm working, like where I'm leading. So it's like desktop client, microservice architecture behind it, and administration on the web. and I don't know how to run any of those. I mean, I know, and probably if I think like 3 hours, I will remember what particular service, because like 3 Node.js service, 1.NET service, Electron desktop application, and React application on the web. And theoretically, I know how to run any of those, and we have readmes that says they are running, but sometimes there are like certain environment variables that point to particular environments. Sometimes Electron, and the React application is running okay, but for example, there should be special VPN to run it. And when you sit and say, okay, I have 45 minutes to code, and you think, okay, where can I code? And you start in doing documentation or something else, because you understand that you'll spend 20 minutes remembering how to run certain service or certain language, because JavaScript, C# and something in database. So you have to manage your context switches if you want to save the coding on your side. This is something to think about. This is actually my own topic. I mean, only about myself. I'm not sure whether you will experience any of those, or is this something you ever think about when you think about being a team lead? But it actually hits very hard. So I will give you an example. When I started a team lead in a small team, I think it was like 5 people, we were actually we were getting knowledge from a Vietnam team, and we were picking up the products they did after them, and we did like daily knowledge transfer for them. And I would say that it's really hard to do a knowledge transfer when DI tie is device type. And it was like whole meeting of such DI ties. In the same time, this is politics, but this separate vendor from Vietnam, they are trying to prove our own, like our mutual customer, that they are more capable of doing what we are trying to pick up from them. And that was actually leading to a politic games, like the production is down and our team have to bring it up, but it's on the Vietnam team VMs, and only they know how to reach it. That is why we have to say to our customers that we cannot do it without the Vietnam team, and etc. etc. So a lot of knowledge transfers, a lot of features, a lot of conversation, etc., etc., etc. And that leads to my new year. I think I spent 19 hours on the 3rd of January at work, and I lost sleep at some point, because it's not because you worry about something or you lost something or there are some nervous. You just getting used to solve the smaller problems, and your brain comes to a I don't know, rhythm where you solve the problem, and when you trying to go to sleep, your brain cannot stop. So it starts thinking, what I forget, what I'm doing next morning, And actually, it's not only me, it's my couple of my developers and my Scrum Master went on the antidepressants. So we had, it's not like it's happening to you when you become a team lead. It's something you have to manage, and if you would be prepared for this, you probably can deal with it, because we did manage to solve this. So at some point I got the team and say, okay, we are working 8 hours. If someone comes to you directly, you resending him to me, and or sure. And if we have like extra scope, we throw out something from our current scope. If you have urgent fixes, okay, we can do them because we are professionals, but after that we have a rest, etc., etc. We set up certain rules, and that, it's that help. Not like always, but that actually helped. You're thinking about everything. You're thinking about everything you are doing, everything you're going to do, what you're going to do in a year. But that actually for a context switch. The interesting stuff. So when you are senior front-end developer, or just when you are a developer, you are used to doing a job. You're sitting, you have your coffee, you have your headphones, you may, I don't know, sometimes people watching the movies, I don't know, but listen to the music, and you're doing your job. And it's probably, if you are more senior guy, it's probably 1, 2, 3 days of work. When you stop doing this job, you are doing your personal life stuff. You are solving, I don't know, medical issues. You are taking your child to school. You are helping your mother with some, I don't know, how to install application on your phone. You are doing normal stuff, and you have actually rest from your work, and you have rest from your personal life. When you become a manager, I think it's like for all managers, not only for team leads, but when you become a manager, you're actually doing at your work exactly the same what you are doing in a personal life, and they start merging. So you kind of you're calling to someone, you are thinking about something small, or like small limits of time, you're being interrupted, you change your context, you picking up what was in that context, and you're switching back, you try and pick up what was in that context, and that actually gives you small amount of rest. Like start going to mountains, or like I like driving, for example, because when you're driving for a long time, like 2-3 hours, you're actually in one context, and it's awesome. And you know, it's boring, but it's awesome. Your brain is I was talking about sleep already. This is too strong word, like loneliness, but you should be prepared that even you are leading a team, you are no longer the part of the team, actually, because like you have a good people, you actually managing them, working to them, but somehow it still shifts that they are a group, and you probably more closer to a group of the, I don't know, architectural team and team leads, but they are the same. You know, it's not like a club of a team leads. When it's especially probably visible when you're working in the same room. I never had that. I always worked in a distributed team, but be prepared that you have your own private life with the friends and everything, but you're no longer the, you know, team member that makes you like feel as a group. You always already somewhere outside, because you have a bigger picture, and it's a good sign if you are bringing this picture to people, but sometimes this picture can overload them. For example, if there is a, I don't know, if you know that the work, you have a work only for 3 months, that may be a bad sign for all developers. You know that there is a like friction, and work may appear, or may like even 3 months may become 1 month. But when you given this all the people like on your team, that may influence their mood and everything. So you have to be careful. So you start hiding information from them. You starting let's say manage their mood, and that becomes like separates you from them like almost immediately. And at the same time, they are asking your opinion, they are asking your solution decision, and that also separates you. Technical degradation is actually really interesting. In the same time, you have a lot of access to different information. They starting talking to other tech leads, you're starting talking daily to architecture, to CTOs, and you picking up a lot of information, or you changing the project and you're going from, I don't know, GitLab to Azure, and you picking a lot of information. But in the same time, first of all, you understand how many things you are missing, because of that green area somewhere here, remember, like with the management activities. So you're starting and trying to pick up that part. In the same time, you had your own plan of the self grow. Like, for example, I want to read domain driven development, or I want to check out the new version of the React or .NET. And in the same time, you have all this new information, and that leads to that you probably picking information from what is given to you, rather than like having a separate like 1 hour for reading. It would be really great from you to set up your hour for like reading news, or reading a book, or reading a, you know, science fiction, just to relax. But you will feel technical degradation, because your team will be talking about new version of React, about new cool feature there, and you like last time you read the news was like 3 years ago. Imposter syndrome, this is really interesting thing, because you're starting to talk a lot with a different interesting people. You meet a new DevOps and he's starting to talk to you about the new GitLab actions or automated CI/CD that automatically pick up all your builds, setting up the pipeline and deliver automatically to a production. Then on the next call, you talk to a CTO who talks about the investment in a, for example, company he did last week, and then you come to another meeting and product owner discussing, I don't know, some business way to resolve particular problems, which doesn't allow. You actually knew that product owners can estimate the work you are going to do. And they like, there is a meeting between CTO, who saw me, I don't know, 5 times, and my product owner, who probably understands what we are doing, but on a UI level, just to hold some buttons, etc. And our Scrum Master, and they like, okay, this will take 5 sprints. This probably will maybe 2-3 months. Okay, the plan for a year is set up, and then they like, Valentyn, this is your plan for the year, and you start thinking, okay, only this chunk will take a half a year because there is a legacy and we have to rewrite everything. Otherwise, you will stuck for a year just trying to understand how to actually understand this at all. But they do. They estimate, and they have certain, rules probably, or books for how to estimate. But you're talking a lot to different interesting people. You're seeing how many things you're missing from different areas of different, I'd like to know more about DevOps. I'd like to know more about C# because I have senior developer who is saying me something like, I don't know, let's rewrite the service to CQRM. Like, okay, I know what is CQRM. And he says like, and we will use Aurora. I like, Aurora is a free version, cloud version of the Postgres. And like, yes. And he is operating with the stuff like naturally, and you getting chunks of information you heard from somewhere and something. And you starting actually comparing yourself to all people you're talking to, and you actually lose the battle everywhere, and you start thinking, okay, I'm not so smart as I thought. And yeah, that's growing. And this politics, I think politics is a hard topic. So especially when you're working in outsource, like a lot of people working in outsource, like who's from the product? Okay, so I don't know, maybe in product is different, but in outsource, you not only think about the delivery and the quality of your feature, but also how your particular outsourcing company is looking in front of the customer. And sometimes if the management, especially if the management on the customer side, you may write a relatively bad project, but if for every decision customer made, you have a mail saying that you suggest different thing, that's probably a good sign for your company. And that driving me crazy, because sometimes you want to do a quality product, but management on the customer side shifts you to this, and the only thing you can do, and you should care actually, is that when there will be a post-mortem, to provide a proper explanation why we go in every way. And that actually hits you a lot, because sometimes you are delivering something, and in a half a year, a CTO comes to you and say, Valentyn, why you wrote this? You don't remember even what you wrote, but you have to find an email saying why you wrote this. So this is something less related to a psychology itself, but it's always on your background, especially when you are working in the outsourcing or multi-team area. You're always thinking about how to properly provide everything, how to talk to people. You can say like, your PO is shitty. You have to say, I don't know, like there probably were some issues on the product management side, so let's review them on like weekly review or something like this. So you can say what you think sometimes. Yeah, this probably self-explanatory. So the things you will be missing: coding, sleeping, working on one task at a time, certainty. What you're probably gonna like: architecting. I like architecting. Talking to architects, they are so smart, and you learn a lot from them. And actually, you will be doing some chunks of work, and when it's starting to be working, it's almost the same like you hit a run in your idea. So working architecture is much cooler than working code. Power, you're a tech lead. Learning new things. So as I said, planning could be interesting sometimes, especially when you already spent some time on the project and you understand what you're planning. Discussing requirements is very funny because sometimes PO comes to you and say, okay, this is design, and you start asking what's happening if there is an error, or what's happening if this is going behind the threshold, and they're so confusing, and they go and try ask to their manager. Sometimes it's funny. And leading, yeah, it's so depending on whether you scared of everything above, probably you may like leading. And yeah, my questions. Questions 1, questions 2. Yeah. No questions. No questions. Seconds.
Do you hear me? Okay. I have two questions. First, is there any way to evaluate team lead work? Like, how would you, if you would interview team lead, what would you ask him? And the second question, how many times per day you regret about being team lead?
Thank you.
You should have 2 of these. That's a team leading, actually. I will start from the second one. Like it's a small piece of private information for me, but during this 8 years of my development experience, I wasn't really in love with coding. So sometimes you run something after 3 days of struggling, and it does feel great. But to be honest, I'm not the guy who is reading how, for example, Rust works when he has a free time. So I was always reading science fictions, playing football or video games, and when I became team lead, I understood that this is actually what I love. So I don't know how it happens. So, but I'm not regretting that I'm team lead, but I suspect that someone may. For the first question, this is really good question, and this is related to imposter syndrome I was pointing about. When I actually changed the company because of your question, just because I was so scared that I joined my previous company. It was awesome, and I spent there 7 years, from a middle to a team lead with a 3 years experience of leading, like not 3, like maybe 2.5, and on my background, I was always thinking about those people who like senior in a one company, the people who became like one project seniors, who became a senior just because they spent 10 years on the same project and they know everything there, and they needed a salary raise, etc., etc. So at some point, I started thinking, will be I'm good enough for another company as a team lead, and I started gone through the interviews and things. And the interesting stuff is like my experience interviewing as a team tech lead is the reason I made a slide about difference between team and tech lead. You probably have to like take an HR, sit with him and ask about every responsibility you are expected to be doing to understand whether she is looking or he is looking for a team lead or a tech lead. Because, they just throw you team lead or tech lead, but it doesn't mean anything. That may be everything starting from the like 90% of time coding and 10% of time saying like mentoring someone to actually 100% of management. And the interviews actually differs in the same manner. So you actually being interviewed to be leading some particular team in particular project, and people asking questions about that. So they are asking how you would manage a conflict. Sometimes I've been in an interview in a box that I was talking most of the time. So I was asking a lot of questions: how the team structured, how the pipelines works, what the tests, what the like process, sprints, everything. I was asking, and probably that convince people that I'm capable of doing their stuff. Sometimes they are giving you a test task. My test task was for middle developer, I guess, maybe junior, so there was some algorithm. But I can say how I do interviews for a like team lead or like senior developer. I have a small task for a Fibonacci sequence in a shitty .NET fiddle that is working with the bugs. And there is a small bug which I encountered when I created this task, is that if you're not looking at the version of the C#, you're actually having like you can have a different version of the C# and your string interpolation will not work. And doesn't matter. You have a problem in your code, and you have a poorly written requirements to your task. So it's like console log string interpolation Fibonacci sequence. And I understand that people who are working for like 4 and 5 years, they can implement Fibonacci sequence. It's not so hard. But I expect them to ask, for example, what do you want from this Fibonacci sequence? Do you want them in a string separated by the comma? Do you want the array of int? Do you want the summary and you just wrongly named the function, or you want the nth Fibonacci sequence from this function? So I expect people to ask questions, what do I want from this task? And it's not like I'm just throwing at them. I'm giving them hints like, think of me as a customer, or you can Google, whatever. So I had one guy who Googled just Fibonacci sequence C# and copy pasted. That's probably a wrong way to go through the interview. And second thing is this bug in the string interpolation. What I expect from the experienced developer is first, make sure that your code is okay. It's actually done by like Googling string interpolation C# and you look into MSDN and see how it's written. So you match MSDN to what is written, you recognize that it's written correctly, and then starting thinking somewhere outside. But like I've made through the 20 of interviews, and people like they see Fibonacci sequence, they starting with the Fibonacci sequence, they hit run. They're not asking me what I want, so they read just like they expect it to be done. Then they hit run and it's running, but there is an error, and they think that the error somewhere in a Fibonacci or the return result. They start thinking, what should Fibonacci like? Okay, this return arrays of int, and it's not compiling. Okay, then probably I have to do to string and whatever. And just because they started from this Fibonacci sequence and everything, they stopped thinking about string interpolation, documentation, and everything. So I'm looking at how a person thinks and what questions they are asking. It's not like the only task. But now you can be interviewed by me and you can success. A lot of questions, a lot of views. Sometimes you ask him not about how to write a code, but your impression of some particular features, and that's how it is.
Thank you for your speech. I have some interesting question. After coronavirus became popular remote work, after it, full work for two companies became popular. We can see a lot of information and resources about it. How do you think about this situation? And should such cases be detected if we not see any problem with team productivity? If yes, how? Thank you.
So, okay, wherever I know people who does this, and especially in the leading when your processes are set up, that might be so. When you're spending in the project, for example, I don't know, 3 years, and you actually sorted out everything, you configured your team, and like everything is stable, you probably can do your work in like 2 3 hours, 2 hours, 4 hours, and well, that might work out, right? Theoretically, but for especially development, there is a rule, I think, in Europe that's saying that people like mandatory should not work more than 8 hours a day, and that's questionable because we all work like 10 12 hours a day. I'm working from phone like all the time. I mean, I don't have an hours a day, so I'm just going to shop mall and I'm typing something to my PO and I'm thinking about the future. So but there is actually a reason for this 8 hours period is the rest of your day, rest from work. And it in my opinion, you are not supposed to aim to a short-term expertise. The best person I talk to, the best person, like experienced person, they have like 20, 30, 40 years of experience. And I know such persons, and they're awesome. They're picking up a lot of things, and I am not believing that you can work 12, 14 hours a day for 30 years. You will burn out. You will stop. I know the guy who was like really talented front-end developer. He was picking up stuff. He was doing a great solutions, and the same he was working like 12 hours a day, and now he's jumping on the skis just because he burned out in like 10 years of experience like front-end developers, and he shifted his interest into the skiing just because he could not longer maintain this vibe. That is why you can do this 10 years. You will work for one company for like 5 years, and for this company you will be all right. But for yourself, you have to understand whether, of course, if you're handling two companies in 8 hours a day, you're just fine. But this is the personal stuff. You can do this, but you have to decide whether you are aiming to the 30 years career, or you are like earning extra salary every month, and then you will sort it out. Actually, the main thing outside of this is your health. It's with the time, with this like team leading stuff, it's hard to maintain the healthy life, and it doesn't matter, like, I know, till 40. I wasn't there, but probably till 40. But after that, you probably will feel all your decision you made at 20s and 30s. So that's my opinion. I'm not saying that someone shouldn't do this, but and more probably in one company that might be even not noticeable. If you're a good developer and you're using the same solutions, like you have your own templates, probably you will be fine. But everyone should think of their own, area. Okay. Like I would personally not notice this. So not this. So I wouldn't detect the actual fact of working for two companies, but if someone stops meet your expectations, especially when this person already set your expectations, right? When you hire someone, you don't have an expectations other than the interview, and you setting up these expectations, and you probably compare it to the only way you can compare it to the salary, right? You hire a senior developer, he's done shitty code, so probably he's not senior developer. But once this expectation set up, you're working with a person half a year, and you expect certain things, and you're doing planning. You're like, okay, Andre will do this feature for 2 weeks, and he's doing this for 3 weeks. And at first you think, okay, sometimes it happens, but it's starting to be a regular thing, and you starting digging and investigating, and you finding out that he's working for two companies. If this breaks your plans, this will be, automatically detected. You will lower these expectations, and that would be a mistake. You have to find out what the reason for this. Maybe he's sick, maybe he has, problems in private life. So you start thinking about it, and you finding out this. Probably this have to be detected. If the performance is fine, be my guess. Yeah, but performance is fine for me, but I don't know if it's okay for you to maintain the rhythm.
Opinion doesn't match company's policies, right?
You can hire someone, I was there.
Question, was it explicitly described why simulating and outsourcing so challenging? But why did you choose process?
So I didn't choose the company, I chose the project, and actually it changed after I signed the offer. But it appears that I still got another good project. But when you are a developer, and if you are a smart developer, you're starting doing this already, but I wasn't super smart. So when I was a developer, I was choosing maybe salary, maybe the company reviews, like this is the cool company, they have like cookies or extra salary in the end of the year, or design or whatever. But at some point, you started thinking not only about what you can provide to company, but also what company can give you. And it's not like material, material benefits, but it's interesting project. So when I was working at my project, I was already knew what I'm good at, what I'm bad at, and what actually I want to do. So as I said, I wasn't really passionate in coding, and probably I wouldn't fit a good company that requires a good single stack leading developer, because if I'm a leading single stack developer, that means that first of all, I'm not doing what I meant to in my head, and second, this is probably the very weak team, and I don't want to work in a very weak team, because I had a official seniority in a JavaScript and strong middle in a C#, but in the same time, like being three years of a leading with the everything I just described, actually, I didn't code for months. That is why, in technology, you're being late already in a month. So I had my own vision, what I'm wanting to do. And when HRs reached to me and we were talking about the projects, I was honestly saying that I'm not a technical guru who will be solving all technical problems. I'm rather a, the guy who is most interested in delivering the interesting product to your customers, but I would like to work near the strong technical people and and help them, guide them, etc. So that was a feat. Yeah,
And are you satisfied now?
yeah. More questions? Tricky ones? Yeah.
How to manage the team building remotely?
So that's actually a very good question, because team mood is very important. And to be honest, I never, like, I heard only once about the remote team building that, in my opinion, probably went well, is they were playing like Don't Starve together. Don't Starve. This is a computer game where you have, you know, I can't explain it. It's like something between Minecraft and Tim Burton. So yeah, but I heard of like meta universes. Probably this is interesting thing. It's like, for example, I don't know, PUBG, this thing on the phone, etc. So computer games probably is a good way to do it. Team building probably will be an interesting stuff. So for example, if you can go karting on your team building, why can't you do, like, I don't know, Counter-Strike 1-on-1? But in the same time, I understand that it's not something you exchange team buildings to, but this might be a fun activity as well, is involve team in a, like, estimating and planning, not in a crucial way where you're giving the proper estimates, but rather like discussing the architecture with the team, for example, of the feature, or the simultaneous discussions on the requirements and architecture. For technical people, that might be fun. It's not changing the team building, but the influence on the mood in the same manner. But the only thing in my experience that most of the time, most of the people are silent. It's like, it's driving me crazy when you start asking the people's opinion, they're just all muted, and probably one or two seniors starting suggesting something. But like when tech lead arrange like architecture discussions with you, don't be afraid of asking stupid questions or suggesting solutions. That's actually the goal of the tech lead at that time, to start the conversation. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry?
You overall implementation that you completed,
Yeah.
and why?
Why I'm sleeping? Probably because I like to sleep. At the same time, historically, during my university or whatever, I always prefer to have a more sleep than learning in the last time. Like when I lose sleep, I actually become a shitty believer.
So, what was more about
What?
things that maybe it's a bit like red flag, work more than 8 hours to spend 12, and if maybe focus on delegation. And actually, what is it about delegation? How do you decide?
Okay, this is the good question about delegation, and first of all, as I said, as a team lead, you probably stop counting hours. It's just because most of your work is in messengers and emails, and probably thinking. Actually, I never understood how to differentiate, like how to write a working hours, because like when I'm going home, sometimes I'm thinking about how I would do something in my team, and then I will spend 2 minutes of drawing this in a mirror, for example, and this goes to architecture review. So for a team lead, there's probably not an issue. You just working all the way. you probably allocate, as I said, like rest hours for yourself or family hours. It's like super important, like family hours. I'm still working on this, but super important. You're probably starting to care about your team. So the red flag is your team is like constantly working more than 8 hours. If you hear like urgent bug fix in production, like every day through the like 1 week, you probably start thinking about maybe you should stop and do some code freeze, bug fix. Maybe you should talk to your QA or to understand what the hell is going on, because like constant bug fixes of site releases is a bad. It is something you have to look at. But I think you mentioned like you asked for yourself how to care about yourself. This mean, right?
We have about rotation. What do you think about rotation?
Okay.
Even like zero case, maybe the delegate more.
Yeah, I understand. I understand. So, delegation is actually one of your tools which you are using constantly. The problem is sometimes the amount of context which is so big that, like, even with the delegation, you sometimes missing things. But you actually starting to gather the information from people. So for example, I'm giving the business feature, and I think that I don't have 15 minutes or it's not enough for 15 minutes to investigate how it's working, because there is a front end, probably there is some animation on this front end, which is complex one. Probably there is some old service you want to get information from, but you know that this is probably a legacy service with a SOAP, so you know that probably your architectural board will require you to provide a solution for refactoring to immediately separate it in a microservice. And you think, okay, so I have a front end who can investigate how much time will take to do this animation. From your experience, you know that all other things will take like 1 sprint, maybe 1-2 sprints. Then you allocate some spike for your backend developer to think that same through, and he is bringing you information, and you already, if you trust to this developer, you can start architecturing the whole stuff, and you can bring the to architecture, you can bring the short-term, long-term solution. So delegation, if you're leading and you're not using delegation, you're probably not leading, you kind of trying to mentor all your team. And yes, I'm using delegation a lot.
For example, in this case, for example, I think is the responsibility that thinking can get also this architecture decision, and you can just say, okay, you know, someone people like want to be an architect, and this would be like a chance for him for job, to do this architecture stuff. And you can just delegate and say, see,
the thing is that probably this architectural step happens like takes 15 minutes. Like it's hard to create a big architecture for a whole project, but if the architectural vision is set up 90% of the time, the solution is not so complicated. It's really quick, and it's nothing to delegate. You probably will draw the diagram on the, I don't know, architectural talk while the previous speaker is speaking about the architecture. So this is nothing to do.
Sorry, not a position, but the last question, you can actually communicate with the Valik after, like on the break. We have from our online translation.
What do you think about the future development from team lead? Where to go next, architect, delivery manager, or stay in television about 10 years? Okay, I got it. Great question. And that actually depends on your leading style. As I said, there are most probably there are tech leads that you're using more technical approach than I do, and they're enjoying reading technical stuff, enjoying creating complex feature, and probably they will go to the architectural, let's call it, branch. But you should be aware that architecture is also half soft skill thing, because even your architecture and you most often create the architectural solution, there is a need to convince other people, especially management one, that your architecture is better than it was, and you actually have to spend 10 sprints of refactoring everything, and will bring the value. And if you can do this, you know, you can create like super solutions, but you will need an extra person who will be talking for the solution you created. So if you're a technical tech lead, let's call it tech lead, you probably will go to that way. There are also something that calls delivery manager and engineering manager. This is something more management, but with a technical thing. And again, probably somewhere upper my level. The things are different, so I can't like 100% be sure that I'm saying the good information about what is about this. But I see like DM, PM, EM, like delivery manager, project manager, engineering manager, architect, probably CTO at some point. But the higher you go, the wider stacks you should have, and the less deeper stack it will be. Probably at some point you will code for yourself just for fun, and that's it.
Thank you.